sites that serve emergency operations as well as the general public. They could be shutting down your cell phone services that could be delivering messages to help people's safety, as well as the messages and stuff that are in the television system. I think they need to find a way to be more selective about how they do that. In some cases, the power lines that supply our television systems that they're shutting off are actually buried power lines. I mean, now wouldn't it have to blow pretty hard to make our power line create a problem? There's got to be a better solution.
Have you? So we've been coordinating with them a lot through emergency management, through George Coulson and Cassie Meredith. Do you have their contact by chance? If not, I'll get it to you. But you might reach out to those guys and just let them know, because that's an issue that, we've had several meetings, but that issue's never been brought up. But let's add that to the growing amount of issues that we've got with that policy.
I know George a little bit. I do have contacts with Rocky Mountain that I talk with when there's an outage. I've expressed my concerns. That's kept me pretty busy there for.
Dennis, how long are they usually out for? What's the average of?
It depends on where and what's going on. There was one they shut off at Frisco Peak that was probably off for 7 or 8 hours. When I called them, they said that it was predicted to be off for like 36 hours. I mean, the maintenance on these, we have generators at these sites.
That's what I was going to ask you about, as a generator.
And I work hard to maintain them. One of the tricks I'm aware of and I watch is those generators sit for long periods of time. Then when they start up, and the thermostat on them, because they've sat for so long, doesn't always open. So the generator runs for 2 or 3 minutes and shuts off because it's over temperature. When I go to the sites, I monitor this. I start the generators, and that's one of the things I make certain is that those thermostats don't do that.
So you use them.
But they will do it.
A lot of generators nowadays will start automatically and run for 20 minutes a month or something.
Yeah.
Some of the newer models, but
they can do that, but still they sit, and it's anybody's guess as to when the thing's going to fail. Is it going to show you there's a failure when you go to the site to test it, or is it going to show you there's a failure when there's an actual power outage?
Or diesel? What are they running on?
Most of them are propane now. Okay. The BLM doesn't like diesel fuel on the BLM sites, so most of them are propane. But anyway, it creates the surges take out equipment, and it does have a potential to. It definitely shuts off the service. And in this case at Frisco, it probably took me an hour and a half to realize there was a power outage, and then it takes me 3 hours to get to the site to get the generator started again. These are communication sites that relay
valuable
emergency messages. There's control up there that runs the state's gas system. There's equipment up there that monitors the power lines that go between IPP and California. I mean, there's Air Force communications, there's air-to-ground communications. This is a big deal to me. Anyway, I appreciate their effort to mitigate fire hazard, but there needs to be a better way to do that. In my opinion, probably said enough about that. Anyway, another ongoing problem we have is, a year or so ago, the BLM approved an application to put full power FM broadcast on our site at out here at Red Hills. It's west of Parowan, north of Enoch. In my view, full power broadcast and what we do as low power are not services that are compatible on the same site. The power level difference is immense. The problem isn't the difference between what power we broadcast and what they broadcast. It's the issue is the difference between the power level they're broadcasting and the level of the signals that we try to receive to rebroadcast. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of times difference in the power level. The FCC actually has specifications on how much they allow broadcasters to emit noise outside of their licensed channel. That's typically 70 dB. When you're broadcasting 20,000 watts of FM on a site, what that amounts to is the FCC's regulations allow them to generate more noise out of band on the site than the level of the signals we're trying to receive, and that is not a workable situation. Right now, the biggest issue is the FM station that we try to help Utah State University do. That's Utah Public Radio, and we'll find a way to fix it, but we ought to have some communications with the BLM and see to it that they don't add any more of this. This is a site that Iron County developed completely from roads, power lines, and the works, and then you put a few commercial entities on the site, which has the potential to destroy public service. I think it's bad planning, and I don't feel like we had an opportunity to comment on this when it was being started. First I knew of it, I saw the building going up, and the building had a sign on it that said AT&T because it was a building that came from another site. Typically, telephone communications are not an issue to me, so I didn't say anything about it. It was too late. The place was already being built already. But in my feeling, that's a bad problem. That should never have happened. So, anyway, any questions? Anything I can do for you?
So with other fires that are going on up north, is that affecting your relay at all, or is it
Not so much
bypass
now.
those, or how does that work?
There are still necessary outages, and we do try to run generator systems that compensate for that. I was up at Levan and just happened on the site while the generator was running because they were doing maintenance on the power line down lower in the valley, which is an absolute necessity. That's got to be done. But to shut off power lines for the idea that maybe it'll solve a problem when it's definitely creating problems, in my view, is not a good idea.
I just reached out to George, and he's going to give you a call. Just make sure that you guys are on the same page and sending the same message.
There are communications at that same site that we do for the ambulance. The road department also has two-way radio on that site. To my knowledge, it's not affecting them, but it's affecting our services on the site. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
your
Appreciate it.
support.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to commission reports. Paul, you want to go ahead and start?
Sure, I don't have a lot. I want to thank Rich Wilson, for our engineer, for working on the water issues with Modena and Lund. I think we're moving right along on that and getting closer, aren't we, Rich? And help those people out there with their water situation. And just to bring those up to speed who haven't known what's going on, we Union Pacific reached out probably over a year ago and offered to give us a couple of wells that those people are using. There's not a lot of residents hooked up to them, but Modena, their water system is not intact, but the people that do live there haul water from the well site. And the Lund community, what is there, Rich? Maybe 6 or 8, 5, something really small, but still, it's a big deal for the people that are using that water. And so the railroad graciously is giving the county those wells and maybe even some water rights with those, and it'll be like a net lease where the taxpayers won't be burdened with any expenses. The users will have all the responsibility to pay the bills, testing water and all those things, but we will own them, and that's how the law works. So that's a good thing for them. There's the congressional ride tomorrow over in Bryce Canyon, and as I've explained before, that's an opportunity for the 5 county association of governments to invite congressional members from Washington D.C. to come out west, and they ride up on Powell Point, which is right above Escalante Valley, and you can see a lot of country. And until those people really come out west and see the vast nature of our public lands and the issues we face, they really don't get it. And so it's been really a good return on investment over the years where we've had that, to educate those back east with PILT funding, payment in lieu of taxes, and a lot of those kind of things, and the SRS funding that we get, which is critical to our county budgets. I think Iron County is about 60 some odd percent owned by federal government, but you get place like Garfield, I think they're like 98% owned by the federal government. They only have just a tiny percentage of the lands that they have the opportunity to use and tax. And so anyway, that's the only 2 things I have.
Okay.
Just got a few things. Maria Twitchell and I, our tourism director, had an opportunity to visit the St. George Airport flight control tower project. Both of us serve on the airport board. This is an issue. So Cedar City's airport's the 3rd busiest airport in the state of Utah, with all of the SU aviation, with fire operations. We've had a number of very close calls over the years. We've been working toward getting a controlled airspace tower, an airport control tower, for a long time, and there's all sorts of roadblocks. Anyway, St. George was able to get one that's under construction. So we went and visited with their airport manager, with the construction team, and got some really good insight on how to move forward to get our project approved. So that was really helpful. We've got airport board this week that will present that in, but we got some really great insight into maybe how to make this work. We had the Southern Utah Economic Alliance board meeting, something really important. And I had to attend this one via Zoom because I had a toothache and the dentist was able to get me in right after this meeting. So I attended this one by Zoom. But the Southern Utah Economic Alliance was able to sign an MOU with 47G, which is a aerospace and defense group in Utah, kind of an association. So that's a really important alliance to bring those 2 organizations together. We can get a lot accomplished. We had a meeting with the Utah Inland Port. Their entire administrative staff was down for the One Utah Summit and took time to come and sit down with our elected officials and staff to answer questions and talk about some things. I really appreciate them. That's the 3rd or 4th time in the last few months that they've stopped by and sat down with us just to make sure that we're on the same page. We had a meeting with E3 Development, who's a local developer looking at a project here. We were able to kind of look at their project in in detail. We had the One Utah Summit, which is an economic development-based summit that the governor puts on every year. This is the 39th year of that summit here in Iron County at Southern Utah University. It's an economic development-focused conference. There's some really, it was very, I think it was very productive. I was able to sit down with our economic development director, David. We met with Bright Knight to talk about their ongoing problems, ongoing projects that they're working on here and get some detail there. I was able to sit down with the governor's office and talk about some things. I met with GOED, which is the governor's office of economic development. We sat down again with UEPA and talked about some specific projects to get on the same page. Able to meet with folks from our congressional offices, both from on the Senate and the House side, with our federal representatives. I had a meeting with Carson Brown, who is Senator Curtis's new Southern Utah director. He took Jeff Razor's place. Jeff has moved on to work for the governor's office of economic development. I drove Carson around to some different places, introduced him to a number of people. We're probably going to do that a couple more times with Carson. Carson formerly worked for Congresswoman Malloy in her D.C. office, but has moved out here. So he'll be our new point of contact with Senator Curtis's office. Met with Rocky Mountain Power with emergency management to talk about just those issues that Dennis brought up. So that's an ongoing coordination. I want to thank our fire crews. Spencer Rollo, our county fire warden, has been really good at keeping us in the loop as far as what's going on with our wildfire situation. Royce Barton and the Paragoona Fire Department have responded to I don't know how many calls in their area, put out a number of fires. Alan Cavallari and the Perron Fire Department have also been right there. Tyler Allred and the Canaryville Fire Department, Dan Benson and Bryan Head Fire Department, and then Mike Phillips and the crew at Cedar Fire. It's been cool to see those guys responding all over the county in mutual aid. We know that even a small single tree type fire needs to be taken serious because we're looking at all of the devastation all around us that started that way. So our fire departments have been in really close contact and basically taken on the whole county as a mutual aid situation. And we've got one fire, I think it was 90 acres. Now I can't remember what they named it. 8 Mile. But it was basically on top of the fire scarf from the other one.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they got that under control over the weekend. So just a shout out to those guys. That's what I've got.
All right. So let's see if I can keep this in chronological order. Had the meeting that Mike mentioned with the Utah Inland Port and discussing projects that they would like to be involved in and how those might go, and it's interesting to see how that has transitioned, I guess is maybe a good way to say it, from where we started out. So they've been very, very good discussions, and there's some good possibilities with the ability to work with them. Then we met with E3 about their project and kind of addressed some issues there and learned a lot more about them, and they sent us a presentation that we've been able to go over individually. So looking forward to having discussions about that and see what we can do with that. Also had an opportunity to meet with Bright Knight and listen to a little bit more of their ideas and their presentation and try to get an idea of what they're trying to, their project is going to be. Attended the One Utah Summit. Some very, very good discussions that I was able to be involved in there. One of the highlights of that was talking about power and the need for more power throughout the state. Small modular reactors. There's one that's already up and going in Emery County in Orangeville, so that's exciting to see. And the expansion of power that's going to bring to that area is going to be fun to watch and see how much they can actually pull off with that, and how much power that's really going to generate, and that the opportunity there is huge, I think. So, and I realize the history of nuclear energy or nuclear angst in southern Utah. I grew up in Monticello. I've lived in Iron County since 1987. I understand the angst and the apprehension with nuclear energy. But this is a new age and a new technology, and it was really, really good to listen to that presentation. Also attended another one, or on the main stage was a presentation by Gene Shawcroft, who's the Colorado River Commissioner for the state of Utah. The federal government just put down Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior, just released a 2,800 page ruling on the Colorado River and what the upper basin states and the lower basin states are going to be mandated to do. Upper basin states are going to kind of hold the same. Lower basin states are going to take a reduction. I'm sure lawsuits are pending on that.
You say that the brief on it was 89 pages if you just wanted to read the summary.
Right. So if you want something, I'm sure you can go to sleep to. I'm sure you could read the 2,800 pages, but one of the big decisions in that is that the lower basin states are going to be allocated water on, how did he say it? Allocated water on supply, not demand.
Yeah.
So in the past, California, Arizona, they've been able to take water out of Lake Mead and out of Lake Powell on demand, and now it's going to be allocated on the supply that is in the upper basin states and the supply that's existing in Lake Mead and Lake Powell. So that's a huge change. That's a huge paradigm shift for Arizona and California both. If you're familiar with the Central Arizona Water Project, it's an unreal water project that covers all the way from the Colorado River all the way to Tucson, and so I can't remember how many people are dependent on that water and that infrastructure. So it's a huge paradigm shift in what's going to take place there. Was also, let's see, what other presentations were at that one. It was 3 days that were very, very good. And on Wednesday night, I was able to participate in a Zoom call with the Cedar City or the Iron County wool growers, and there's some legislation. Well, I shouldn't even say it's legislation yet. They're looking into the imports of lamb into the United States and trying to get a control on that to help out our local and nationwide wool growers and lamb growers. So that's very promising, and there's some progress being made there to hopefully control some of the imports and help our local guys out. On Friday morning, I had a meeting with the DNR about the GCP and the prairie dogs and the original agreement that was put out, and how we're falling short on the funding due to how some of those properties are being built on and some of them aren't being built on, and so there's some issues that we're going to have to address there. What else? I think that's about it. So,
Ken,
yeah.
I'd love to build on what you said about the Central Arizona project. I toured that when I was on the water board. Yeah, when I was on the city council, we toured that as a board. It is a fascinating project, and Arizona was never really able to use their water that they were entitled to until they built that project. And I think the key point to that is when you look at water projects, you've got to look out 50 years ahead, and that's exactly what they did. They started that in the 70s, that project, and
Goldwater.
they built an impeller, and we actually saw an old one that was worn out. At the time, it cost $1 million for this stainless steel impeller, and it lifted water from Lake Havasu 800 feet vertically, and then sent it down these concrete canals all the way through, like you said, clear down to Tucson. And at the end, whatever water was left, they would recharge, put it in the ground, and then they pump it out later for to use later. And it was just a fascinating project. The other thing I failed to mention, I did speak at the Farm Bureau meeting. Scott Stubbs called and asked me to talk about some of these wildfires. And back when the Bryan Head fire happened 9 years ago, I think it burned about 70,000 acres, and we thought that was a lot, and it was. But now what I think the Wide Mouth fire, what's it up to? 114, 118 now. And it's, when I did the math, I'm a woodworker, so I understand board footage, and I did the math on the amount of timber, the amount of board footage that they said that burned up in the Bryan Head fire, and it was enough lumber 9 years ago to rebuild every structure in this valley, Cedar, Peril, in this whole valley, 3 times over the amount of lumber that was destroyed. And so we have to continue to put pressure on our legislators, our leaders in D.C. to clean our forests, to allow logging again. This really started when our loggers went out of business in the 90s. A lot of lawsuits from environmental groups that shut them down, and they were our gardeners. They went out and it's like somebody saying, hey, I'll come take care of your garden, I'll weed it, I'll thin it, and not only will I do it for free, I'll pay you to do it. And that's what they did. They paid us for the lumber that they used, and they employed people and helped their economies. But that went away 30 years ago, and this is what we're seeing. And if we could get, I know Senator Curtis is passing the Keep Our Forest Clean Act, or whatever it's called, and hopefully that'll pass, and we can start doing more prevention on the prevention side versus mitigation, because I think the mitigation side, I was talking to Matt Wood, there was a fire out on their ranch a while back, and he was talking to one of the firefighters, and in one day, it was just a little, I think it was only 3,000 acres, but he said in one day they spent $3 million on fire retardant in one day with those planes. If you could just take that money that we use for fighting these fires and use it to clean up our forests and mitigate, and allow our ranchers to use that land and log it and graze it, and we'd find ourselves in a much better position. So hopefully we can continue to put pressure on our elected leaders. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to touch real quickly on what Mike said about the fire departments and how they've stepped up, and that when that storm went through on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, on the Watch Duty app, there was 5 fires that started, and the 8 Mile is the only one that really got going. But in just a matter of a half hour on the app, there was 5 different fires that started out on the hills, and the firemen jumped right on those and took care of them. So kudos to them. All right, we'll go ahead and take a break for 10 minutes. We'll start this back up at 10 o'clock. No baggage.
I don't have any,
No baggage to carry. Yeah.
nobody's got leverage over me and I
Right.
am not making right, right.
Absolutely.
You ready?
Yeah, I was just gonna.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, John, we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get started back up. Thank you all for attending. We'll go ahead and start with item number 1, consideration and potential adoption of an ordinance 2026-18, amending section 1 of ordinance 2026-13, the 180-day moratorium on applications related to data centers, data center power plants, and solar power plants. This amendment clarifies the temporary moratorium does not apply to battery energy storage systems, BESS, for which conditional use permit was issued prior to May 26, 2026, provided that this existing CUP remains valid, unexpired, recorded, and in good standing. Mr. Brett Hamilton.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Robinson. I think you just gave the presentation there. So it's pretty straightforward. With the moratorium, we're just bringing it back, as a proposal to provide some clarity. The way that it is written currently, it would prevent, any type of battery energy storage system from submitting for building permits. And I don't necessarily think that was the intent of the moratorium. But anyway, we're bringing it back with that draft revised language just to note that. And I guess I'll maybe even use this as an opportunity as a quick update on the moratorium. So a lot of the language for a draft, the bones of it, have been drafted up. So we're going to actually take it to the Planning Commission this week on Thursday. Just for like an overview of what the framework looks like, to get some feedback from the Planning Commission on that. And then we plan to probably do a public workshop, just open it up to all the residents to have them view the draft, and then we take it back to the Planning Commission again to get a recommendation, and then on to the commission here. So the plan is hopefully to do that at the latest, the second meeting in October, because the 180-day moratorium would end, I think it's November 22nd. So we want to try and leave a little bit of a gap there so that if there is a need to make some adjustments to it based on feedback from you guys, we'd still have another meeting in November. I believe it's November 9th or 10th, that we'd have an opportunity to make some adjustments and bring it back again if needed. So that's kind of a quick update there. But any questions on this ordinance as it's written there?
No.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion on item number 1.
I'll move to adopt ordinance 2026-18, amending section 1 of ordinance 2026-13, the 180-day moratorium on applications related to data centers, data center power plants, and solar power plants. This amendment clarifies that the temporary moratorium does not apply to battery energy storage systems for which a conditional use permit CUP was issued prior to May 26, 2026, provided that the existing CUP remains valid, unexpired, recorded, and in good standing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead and to item number 2, a public comment period. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Participants should not repeat other comments. This is only for items that are not on the agenda. No items related to commission's role as an appeals board. Comments should be directed to the commission. No attacks on other people's character. We'll open the comment period up. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that and move on to item number 3, which is a presentation from GoRail, the Freight Rail Network. Nate Kaplan.
He's gonna participate by phone. Maybe he's not.
Maybe we'll go on to item number 4 and come back to that.
Text him, but he's in his phone. Okay.
No answer? Okay. Agenda item number 4 is discussion regarding the potential expansion of the county commission from 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners presented.
He's calling me back now.
Okay, yep. We'll bounce back to number 3.
Hi, Nate, this is John. I'm ready to go. Okay, sorry, we started moving on without you. I'm gonna put you on speakerphone and, you're gonna have a delay if you're watching on YouTube, but, I'll keep up on your, PowerPoint.
Okay, sounds great.
Go ahead.
Okay, good morning, commissioners. My name is Nate Kaplan. I am the Western States Director for Go Rail. We're a 501c4 nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. We cover the whole U.S. and we work on behalf of the freight rail industry. So we have supporters like the Class 1 railroads like Union Pacific and BNSF. And we also work very closely and help represent railroad suppliers. So folks that make everything from, ball bearings to you name it, every single part of a train or the tracks or whatever it is that the trains are running on. I'm based in Colorado, and I had the pleasure to be in Iron County. Was it 3 or 4 weeks ago?
A few weeks ago.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I mean, I was in Iron County, like a month and a half ago. I got a little confused because I was excuse me, I was in Wyoming, and I think I might have accidentally put a Wyoming map on here. Apologies for that. Anyway, so if you ever have any issues, Go Rail was created to be sort of a conduit and a connection between the freight rail industry and elected leaders all across the country. So when I was in Iron County, I met with the mayor of Cedar City and many council members, some commissioners up in Beaver. And so I appreciate this opportunity to be able to address your body and talk about some of the issues that we're facing. And we hope that you consider. We can skip the next one. I apologize. I put a Wyoming map on there, but I will send a follow-up email to John and send you an updated view of Utah's map. It looks like for the freight rail industry and all the trains that are running. So first, I'm going to give you kind of a brief little railroad history 101. And let you know a little bit how it works, because it's not very intuitive. It's not something that always seems to make sense because it is an old industry. It's something that's been around for over 200 years. And in the U.S., we have a very different system than, say, the rest of the world, in Europe and in Asia. It's mostly private companies that own and operate the railroads in the U.S. So I just want to make sure, John, we're on the third slide.
A brief railroad history.
Literally on the same page. Yeah, a brief railroad history. Yeah. So in the U.S., it was always private companies with the help of the federal government that built and operate the railroad system. That's opposed to Europe and in Asia, where it's the central governments that always built and owned and operated them. So that goes back to the days of Napoleon, other emperors and monarchs. They built the system, they maintained it, and used it more or less for nation building or fighting wars and expanding their borders. And the U.S. is a much different situation. It was all about economic development and connecting desperate communities and connecting the two coasts ultimately at Promontory Summit. On that famous day when the Golden Spike was driven in 1969. And so ever since then, there's been a lot of private investment. We have 140,000 miles of active railroad tracks across the U.S. Trains move about 40% of all freight volume in America. Trucks still have the majority. They have about a little over 50%, and then the rest is made up by barges and airplanes. Now, innovation has always been a part of the railroad legacy. Trains were probably, arguably, the most important technology in human history. I would even put that up against data centers and internet. Before railroads came online, 99% of people never left a 30-mile radius of where they were born. Obviously, trains changed everything. Not only could people move, but so could livestock, so could minerals, and everything else now, which is containerization is sort of the future of railroads in the U.S. because you can put anything in a container, high value stuff. You can do you name it, computers, cars, every containers. And the U.S. is very unique in its ability to double stack containers. So trains are very efficient. You don't see that in Europe or in Asia because the infrastructure is just not strong enough. And the priority in those countries is usually passenger rail because, again, it's taxpayer funded. And in the U.S., no taxpayer dollars go into the rail system, virtually none. So that's a little bit about innovation, and federal regulations is also something that has been around for 200 years. In fact, a quick little trivia night factoid, but the very first regulation in American history was on railroads in the 1870s. The Interstate Commerce Act was created for railroads specifically in the moving of commerce across multiple states. Also, the Common Carrier Provision was created in the 1870s, and that means that railroads are the only mode of freight transportation that has to move every product that is a federally legal substance. So that trucks can say no to stuff. Airplanes obviously are going to say no to anything hazardous or explosive. Barges can say no, but railroads are actually the only mode of transportation that has to move every bit of freight that a customer brings to them, and that goes back to the 1870s, the Interstate Commerce Act. If you ever want to dive deeper into this, I've really nerded out in railroad history since the past 10 years I've been doing this, and I'm always happy to chat and talk more about rail and the history because it is quite fascinating. Okay, we'll move on to slide 4 here, federal policies. Most railroad legislation and regulation is federal, really due to the Interstate Commerce Act that I just referenced. So most of the policies that we're super focused on come out of Washington, D.C. And the big one, so there's always 2 or 3 4 or so major pieces of legislation or regulation that we're hyper focused on every year, and that shifts from quarter to quarter. Right now, we're very focused on the U.S. Surface Transportation Bill. Every 5 years, Congress passes a spending bill that most of it goes towards highways, bridges, and that sort of infrastructure that our cars rely on and trucks. But also there's pots of money for rail-related projects. So this isn't money that the railroads, the class ones, the Union Pacifics and BNSFs of the world, they do not apply for it, but cities and counties and state DOTs are allowed to. And one of the most popular programs that we had was, I shouldn't say we, but what Congress passed in the bipartisan infrastructure law about 5 years ago under Biden was called the Railroad at Grade Crossing Elimination Program. So grade crossings is where most people feel the heartburn with trains because you might be stuck at an intersection for several minutes, it might make you late for work or school or whatever. Well, Congress put about $6 billion in the last package for cities and counties like yourself to improve these. That might mean a traffic study for the very initial stage. It might mean $100 million to build a bridge or a tunnel, and everything in between is what the feds have told us. That is what they've funded over the past 5 years, and we're hoping that sort of funding is re-included in this next round that's being negotiated in Congress today. Congress is in recess, so I guess not literally today, but when they get back, this is in the Senate's hands right now. And Senator John Thune, who is the Senate president, is said this is a major priority, and it has been for over a year. The House worked on its version, and the Senate has its version it's working on, and hopefully something gets passed by September 30th. Which I think is a long shot, and there'll be some sort of extension. But September 30th is when this 5-year spending program in the IIJA, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, it expires September 30th. So it's very important that Congress stays focused on this, we believe, and that funding for the grade crossing elimination program, and there's another one some of you might have heard called CRISI. It's an acronym, CRISI, Consolidated Rail Infrastructure. That's stuff that a new manufacturer in town, like you have in Cedar City, they can apply to get a new rail spur that might cost a couple $1 million with federal help, or to upgrade a bridge that's decrepit and might need $1 million in upgrades or whatever. This is been a program that's around for 30 years, and it's for short lines and private companies that access and utilize rail to improve infrastructure on their property. So it's very important that your two senators are we're hoping that they keep this in mind and make sure this funding is re-included in this next year's spending bill. So I want to make sure that's on your radar. And if your body would like to send a letter or consider a resolution, that's something I'm always happy to draft language, which you're welcome to edit and help kind of give you a focus on what it is that we're asking cities and counties to consider asking their representatives in Congress. Okay, I'm going to move on to the slide 5 here, federal policies, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. This is the other bill that we've been very focused on this year that has surprisingly not gotten very much attention in the media, but it has been a big deal for railroads. Train thefts have been up several hundred percent since COVID and the pandemic. Long story short, during the pandemic, when all of the supply chain hiccups made the news, and it was frankly global news because you had, several hundred ships waiting outside the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Containers were getting stacked in parking lots. It was a really dark time for all of us in many ways. And on the supply chain, all these weaknesses were highlighted. And believe it or not, international organized gangs have moved into the U.S. After the episode and have been stealing from trains as well as trucks, warehouses, and retail centers at record levels. It's sort of astronomical. Billions of dollars of goods are stolen every year since 2022, and we're all paying the price for it, because when this stuff gets stolen, it's, as you can imagine, it affects the entire marketplace. So what are they doing? These are criminals that are out and cutting air brakes in remote areas and targeting containers and stealing high-value goods like Nike shoes or cell phones and laptops, and then they sell it on the black market and fund their operations back home. We're talking Russian gangs, Eastern European gangs, and Mexican drug cartels are in the U.S. doing it, and it's crazy. Even just saying it out loud, it sounds great. It's like a made ready for Netflix miniseries. and it's intense. But there's a bill right now that would give the federal government some teeth to deal with this situation. Right now, this hasn't been such a bad problem for the past 150 years. But so when something was stolen, it was kind of dealt with on a case-by-case ad hoc basis. So if something is stolen, say it's coming from Salt Lake City, it's going through Cedar City, and then it ends up in San Diego. Well, if it gets stolen in the Inland Empire in Eastern California, whose jurisdiction is it? Is it Utah's because that's where the train started? Is it California because that's where the train theft occurred? Or is it, and if it is California, is it state or local police? There is actually no sort of process dealing with this, and never has been. And so this bill, which we call CORCA, Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, would create a central database that the federal government would own and operate, and local police, sheriffs, and crime enforcement folks, law enforcement folks would have access and be able to input these situations. So if something gets stolen, everybody can see it and start recognizing patterns and sort of start dealing with this insane amount of theft that's going on in the world of freight and warehousing. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like, this is something that's going to help everybody. Railroad ties are getting pulled out in the desert and derailing trains in order to steal this stuff. It's dangerous, and for obvious reasons, and it's actually got bipartisan support. So this is something that we are expecting might cross the finish line in the next couple months. Because it does have a lot of supports from Democrats and Republicans. It's one of the very few bills out there that we have co-sponsors, almost I think 200 right now in the House, and from both parties. So please know that's going on. It's a major issue, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we feel like this one's heading in the right direction. Okay, I'll move on to slide 6 now. I mentioned grants earlier. We're hoping it gets re-included in this surface transportation reauthorization bill. I'll send a follow-up to Jonathan with a link to our grant hub. So we work closely with the Federal Railroad Administration to kind of make all of their information easier to digest and understand, and we use graphics and infographics, that kind of stuff, to break down in buckets. I think there's 8 different rail-related spending programs that were included in the last passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and you will be able to see who can apply for it, who can't, so you're not wasting time. And if there's something in there that piques your interest, let me know, and we don't write grants, that's not our thing, but we can help shepherd counties and cities through the process, and make sure you're talking to the right person at the right railroad if you wanted to move forward with something. Now, all these grants are at the tail end of that last spending program, so unfortunately right now there's no announcements of new grants being available, but that's why we're hoping that Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act continues to include this sort of funding. So Iron County or any city nearby in the county can apply for this sort of stuff. It also does include passenger rail. Even though we don't necessarily work on passenger rail, there's obviously a close connection, so we can help answer questions on it or connect to the right person if it's at Amtrak or whatever agency you need to talk to. We can help facilitate that and make your lives easier in that way. All right, and that is all I have for now. Go to the last slide. That is my contact info. And if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer. If not, like I said, I'll send a follow-up email and with some of that background and the links to the Grant Hub. And if there's an opportunity for your county to weigh in on some of this stuff, we would love to, because railroads, it's the backbone of most states' economies. But in a state like Utah, where things are moving fast and you guys are growing, your economy's growing, the Inland Port Authority has done, in my opinion, an outstanding job reaching out to communities all across the state and making sure that rail is an important component for environmental reasons, cost reasons, and efficiency reasons. So as things start moving, I mean, you have like the BZI project and a lot of stuff I've been talking to your folks down there about. Rail is going to be a key component. So understanding, most people think rail, they think of old steam engines and, the old days. That couldn't be further from the truth. These things are high-tech trains. They're like supercomputers on wheels, and they are moving everything that we use on a daily basis, from computer clothes to cars and our food and everything in between. So again, thank you for this opportunity. And let me know if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions.
But I don't either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like that's it for us. You're welcome.
We'll move on to agenda item number 4, a discussion regarding the potential expansion of the county commission from 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners. Bill and Tanya Payne.
Well, good morning. Thank you for taking time to listen to us. But I mentioned to Tanya, I don't know, a long time ago, a year ago, hey, it'd be nice to see 5 commissioners for our county. And then I forgot about it. And then she says, oh, we're on the agenda. So here we are. So anyway, I'd like to know how you 3 commissioners would feel about promoting 5 commissioners for the county.
My first question is why?
That's what I'm asking you. Why?
Well,
Why?
I'm sorry. Well, I think why is because of what the gentleman just said on the rail. Our community is growing so fast and so much that why wouldn't we want 5? Why would we only want 3? If you could have 5 instead of 3, why not? So that you could all work together and have more. Our community is growing so much. Do you know that the Uintah County has they put it on the ballot? Why not let our people, our voters that voted you guys in, why not let us vote if we want 5 or if we want 3? The Uintah County population as of 2026 was 38,402 people. Iron County in 2026 has 68,723. Do you know, I'm old. I'm not interested in going in and getting a lot of votes of our people to have it put on the ballot, but you guys can get it put on the ballot. It's that easy to do a study, do a resolution, and get it on the ballot. And it will take time. It's not going to be the next ballot that it's going to be on. It's going to take time to do the study. It's going to take time to do the resolution. But it's going to be, having 5, we get like different areas of our county.
Have districts.
Have districts, I'm sorry. I'll let you talk.
Just have districts, because, we didn't get here right at 9 o'clock, but I heard you guys talking about different things you guys have been doing. And the way the county's growing, you guys could split that workload up a little bit better. And I know there's pros and cons against everything, because I'm a person that I hate bureaucrat stuff. We have a business, and I can't go through all the things that you guys go through to make a change in business. We have to make it sometimes right now. So, but I'm just kind of wondering if you guys would be interested in addressing that and moving forward. I know you'd have to do a change of government, and things like that.
And have to create a steady committee and do the resolution just to get it on the ballot. And that's not a big deal to me. If I was a county commissioner, it would not bother me one bit to say, hey, let's get 2 more commissioners. But you're saying, well, then we're going to have to raise your taxes. That's probably what you're thinking. And if by the time we get to that point of getting it on the ballot, the jail will be done. We'll probably have the data center. That will be bringing a lot of revenue in so that we would be able to afford to make that difference. I'm like, we're bouncing back and forth. So we're just wondering, how do you feel, Commissioner Cousins? How do
I
you
feel?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you. I've talked to a good friend of mine a lot. We've debated this for many years. Okay, and I'll tell you how I feel. You talk about population. You've got Class 2 counties like Washington and Utah County, and they used to have 3. I like 3 commissioners. Granted, you can. The argument is, well, you can get 2 commissioners that are rogue and they can just run wild. And this has been my opinion or what I've seen in the past. With all due respect, I respect you guys for coming and being involved. I really do. But with some of the change in government, I've seen maybe 5 commissioners that are maybe less engaged a little bit. They change the structure where they hire. A lot of times the first thing they'll hire a county administrator. And we had a county administrator one time, and we kind of moved away from that. But a lot of times they'll hire a county administrator. That administrator will hire a secretary and have an office and a car, and it just kind of balloons the budget. And are you going to take the same pay and divide it by 5? And then if you do that, because this job requires so much time, you almost have to be independently wealthy to be a commissioner, because you have to have a full-time job and try to be a commissioner too. And so those are just some of my thoughts. So I like the 3-member commission in our county. I think it suits us well. And a lot of people say, well, back to my argument about the 3 possible rogue commissioners, a lot of times, and they say, well, you could have only 2 people running this whole county. Well, that's where elections are important, and to elect good people. And a lot of times what I've seen is when they go to 5 and they hire an administrator, and the administrator goes to all the meetings, learns about all the issues, and then in commission meeting, a lot of times those 5 commissioners will turn to the administrator and say, how should we vote on this? And so you've got 1 person running the county instead of 2 or 3 or whatever. So those are some of my feelings. Now, since you asked me directly, that's kind of how I feel in some of the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about Commissioner Robinson? How do you feel?
Very similar to that. As I started to run for county commissioner, I actually investigated this a little bit to see if there was a population that would trip that mechanism, and there's not. We're running on extremely tight budgets, like Paul said. The time it would become a little bit easier if we had 5 to split that up, but you become less informed and don't know exactly what's going on if you don't attend the different meetings that you have going on. And as Paul said, you have 1 person that's saddled with doing that. So the cost is a big thing for me. Our travel costs, we try to maintain that as low as we can, and that would have to expand with 5 commissioners. So as I've looked into it and kind of experienced this now for almost 2 years, I don't think I would support that, no.
How about Commissioner Blake?
I have the same concerns, but on the flip side, as we grow, I mean, I would never say no and shut the door, but the budget issues is my biggest concern. And I mean, if we were to do that, anything like that now, it'd have to include a tax increase because of the significant, and I don't have the numbers, but our HR has actually run those numbers and it's significant. But I also get the concern of there's just pros and cons. I would never just shut the door on it, but I'd have to educate myself a lot more, and I think, but I wouldn't shut the door on it.
Thank you. I was just going to say it will take time, but why not let the people vote? I mean, you're just putting it on the ballot, and put out there that it is going to be an increase, and see if our county people are willing to pay the difference to have 5. That's all we're asking, is to get it on the ballot to see what we all want. Not that we can't afford it. It's not in the budget. I've got to make the decision, and it's no. It's let's see if we're okay with raising our budget to have 5 people. That's just how I feel. I understand what you say. I appreciate what you all 3 said, and I agree with you. It would have to increase, but what is it like? More pro, more con? Is it better? And why not let Iron County voters vote on if they want 5?
Vote for Iron County, not Utah County, Summit County, Washington County. Let's worry about Iron County.
Well, I will tell you this: Grand County has 7 county commissioners,
exactly.
and it's a mess.
But we're
honestly.
just asking
It's a mess.
to
Becomes
get it on the
extremely
ballot.
cumbersome.
And it's so much easier for 3 people to say, hey, let's put it on the ballot, than getting all these votes, which I'm not willing to go out and get that many votes. I'm old and
in the
don't have
same
the energy
thought.
and everything. But this is so simple to get
Well.
it, be able to get it on the ballot.
And and you talk about work for referendums, and that's what you have to do. And I've been involved in 2 of them that were successful, and it takes months of time knocking doors and asking for signatures. And I've done it.
Exactly.
I've gone to Sevier County, Paiute County, and got signatures for a referendum we did years ago. We were successful in killing a sales tax issue that we were very passionate about, and it does take a lot of work. And so, do we make it that easy, or do we make people that are really that passionate about it go out and do the work and see if they really want to get on the ballot? So that's the question, I guess.
And I have spoke to several people on this question as how, and there's been a couple that said, no, we're okay with 3. And then as I talk to them, they're like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, 5 would be good. And so I'm just throwing it out there that to you, commissioners, to maybe consider maybe putting it on the ballot, getting a study going, getting a resolution done.
Let's think about Iron County for sure, okay?
Thank you for your time. Thank you
very
for
much.
listening to us.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Agenda item number 5 is review per UCA 10-2-804 and possible approval of annexation into Cedar City, creating an island of annexed land, Van Trust proposed annexation presented by Platt and Platt.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rob Dotson. I'm representing Platt & Platt Engineering in this request from the County Commission of annexation of approximately 82 acres into Cedar City. The property itself is about 1,300 feet from the existing Cedar City boundary. There's 2 intervening landowners in between the current boundary and this property. They've been contacted, and at this point, they're not positive about annexing with the property. This configuration is unique. There is a map right there of the property itself, and with Iron Springs Road crossing it. That is a map from a general plan land use request of Cedar City. This is outside of the Cedar boundaries, but in future planning, they prepare for the zoning if a property is annexed. And this is going before the city council right now to request this potential zoning change to their future plans. This configuration is unique because it is outside of, it would be separate than the contiguous boundaries of Cedar City. Utah Code 10.2.8043B provides a format for a pathway to do this. And this would require that you as a county commission consent to this annexation. This annexation would create some solutions to some issues that are upcoming when it comes to infrastructure. We've had contact with and met with Cedar City officials who are on board with this annexation. With your consent first, of course. We've met with your staff, some of your staff members who are here in the audience, to discuss this over time. We believe this benefit for the infrastructure and in Cedar City, taking over the requirements there would be great for the county, as Cedar City would be taking care of the infrastructure. For sewer, water would be through the Conservancy District, and so we come to you asking for your consent for us to go through the annexation process with Cedar City, which hasn't begun yet. Any questions?
John, can you go to the map? There you go. So the two landowners that are in between there, they have not responded. Have you contacted them?
Cedar City, I believe it was actually Brett sent information to them. It's to the right of that.
Yeah, I can speak to that real quick. So Don Boudreau and myself, we sent out a joint letter from city and the county, basically just notifying all of those surrounding property owners, letting them know about the proposal, and just asking if they had if they wanted to talk to us about it, not necessarily even about annexing their own properties, but just to get information. I had reached out to Don last week just to ask if anybody ever responded to him, and so really it sounds like we just haven't received responses from those letters. So I don't necessarily know if that means they're opposed, to it, but I think we just haven't received any response from them.
Thank you, Brett. And the annexation process would, of course, require the connection with them to get their input. And if there is any problems with them, then it triggers the Boundary Commission to actually review if there's a...
So it creates an island if they're not interested, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's discouraged, usually, generally.
I guess, yes, the state code doesn't allow it, except for in this case, you can actually consent to it, and then it can happen. It's all up to you.
So, commissioners, if you look at the screen, these are the properties that we're talking about, these right here. Even with Iron Springs Road is here, and these are the properties. If you move over here, you've got DeMills, Turf, you've got city boundaries that aren't shown right here, but they began. These are all city properties. This is city properties. So as Rob said, there's about 1,300 feet to this. So just to give you a picture, it's right here. That's the form.
What's there now? Which businesses are we talking that are affected?
On that property,
Uh-huh.
there's nothing there now.
Okay.
It's vacant land.
Is it proposed to be residential?
Proposal to be,
commercial?
no, to be
What's it
industrial,
zoned, I guess?
which helps with Inland Port Authority. We've actually received a letter from Inland Port Authority on some infrastructure enhancements that could happen there to meet Cedar City's needs and their willingness to pay in a tax increment financing, potential willingness to pay for those infrastructure enhancements.
So I was contacted by a couple of members of the Cedar City Council that wanted to sit down and have a meeting. I don't personally, I don't know that I'm ready to make a decision on this until maybe I have those meetings. I mean, quite honestly, Commissioner Robinson and I were in attendance. Commissioner Cousins was on Zoom. We got hit up about issues like this at the last Council on Governments, but it was kind of out of left field. We kind of got bushwhacked. Just me personally, I'm not ready to take action on this until there's a couple more meetings. And I understand, I guess, everything to do with it.
And you'll get us the names of those council members, because we already met with one, the mayor, city manager.
Yeah, one was Scott Phillips, and he said there was another council member that we requested that we meet this week.
Okay.
That was at the summit the other day. We had a conversation. He said, "Hey, let's get together and talk about this next week."
Any idea what day?
No, I need to look at my.
I'd be interested in joining.
Yeah, no,
you,
absolutely.
But I'll
I
be
need
gone the last of the week, so.
I can get that figured out.
Okay.
Probably here today. That's just where
The owners of the property willing to meet with anybody and discuss the concerns and see the solutions that can be brought forward to any of those concerns.
Okay.
Here, Rob, I'm going to tell you something that I'm concerned about with Inland Port.
Sure.
I supported Inland Port, and I do support Inland Port for their initial project. Inland Port, I mean, the business in Cedar City across from the Silver Silo has been put in the Inland Port. It almost, to me, and I'm just going to be blunt because I kind of am, but it seems to me like the Inland Port is kind of out of control. They want everything inside, and you're talking about tying up 75% of the taxes for the Inland Port, and 25 years, and 25% goes to the taxpayer, and I'm concerned about that. And you look at the, yes, they build that infrastructure, but you look at the potential data centers that they want in Inland Port. You look at the this kind of thing that they want in Inland Port, this commercial project by the Silver Silo, and I don't know, I got to confess, I don't know a ton about that. And they say, well, the money's going to stay in Iron County, but when you look at the potential revenue between a data center and E3, which is a huge company that's looking to come in, and this and other, I don't know what you spend all this money on. And when we brought up, we met with Inland Port recently, and we had this very frank discussion with them and saying, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to do that to our taxpayers? Give you 75% of the tax increment, and the taxpayer only gets 25%. Doesn't make sense to me. And they said, well, we'll do whatever you want. I mean, and honestly, and there's been a lot of people that, as we've talked about data centers, don't put them in the Inland Port. Don't do. And I can see both sides of that. I mean, and I talked to the Inland Port when we had a meeting. I brought it up that because if we don't, the Inland Port can be used as a tool so the county gets all of the taxes for a time to do infrastructure. And let's say the Belt Route or the West Desert Pipeline or sewer for this project or whatever it is. Yes, you can do that. And my response to the Inland Port was saying, hey, we may entertain using you as a tool. We may, instead of 25 years, which to me sounds crazy, we might use you for 1, 2, 3, 5 years to build out the Belt Route, the West Desert Pipeline, and use that incremental financing so it all comes to the county so we can do these major projects with. And then when we're done with the Inland Port as a tool, we say thanks, but no thanks, we're done. And they agreed to that. They said, that's fine. We're okay with that. And initially they took a 5% increment to oversee and manage that, the whole process. And when you take for instance, the Pronghorn development, which is the data center which the Planning Commission issued a conditional use permit on, 5% of potential $280 million is a lot of money. And when we started talking about that, they say, well, it could be 1%, it could be 0.5%, it could be 0.25%, it could be, we'll kind of do whatever you want us to do. So, I think, and there's been some discussion about whether we hire outside legal counsel to give us advice, or if we use in-house counsel, or whatever we do, we need to get some good direction as a county on which way we're going with our relationship with the inland port. And it's not that I don't like the inland port; it's that our job as commissioners is to look out for the taxpayer of Iron County, and so that's my feelings.
That makes sense, and appreciate the fact you do look out for the taxpayer, since I'm one of them. Thank you. In this case,
I don't know what you guys think.
I think that discussion's spot on. You start to look at what these projects are going to require outside of just them themselves, what it's going to require of the staff of the county, and it starts to become very, very large very, very quickly, and the additional staff that we're going to have to hire to manage that. Those expenses are going to add up really quickly.
and I appreciate your concern, your words there.
But Rob, I'm with
Only
Commissioner
here.
Blake. I think I really would like to look at the pros and cons. I'd like to listen to staff and hear their opinions on it. I would like to listen to the city council and see what they have to say, but really get more because I'm not that educated on it. I'm not really prepared to make a decision today.
That's where I'm at as well. I mean, I would move to table it for 2 weeks and then, get ourselves more prepared to make a decision.
I'll second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to table agenda item number 5. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
would love to hear from you.
Building official for this?
Sure.
Yes. I was going to ask you to actually.
Can I
Terry Palmer, the building official, and this is as the building official. There are several things that I hope that we would take into consideration. He says it's going to help infrastructure. It will. It'll bring sewer to that project. But in the meantime, we're affected by 20 other properties right there that the sewer now is going to have to go into. Cedar City has not wanted to step up and play ball with this and give us connections to sewer. We've got to look at that because ordinance resolution 2019, can't remember the number on that one, says sewer will hook up if the sewer is within 300 foot, within 10 years it comes in. There's 6 or 7 things that is combined with this. So we're going to affect a lot of land, okay?
Coming to there.
Going to it because they're going to have to run sewer to it, okay? Where are we going to put a sewer lift station? What are we going to do with all that stuff there? Second, road. We hear all the phone calls, and I'm surprised Rich hasn't been yelling. Who's going to maintain that road?
Because they call Bruce.
Because they call Bruce, and then they call Rich, and then they call Terry. Who's going to maintain that road? Because they're going to have to annex the road. That's what they're looking at. Who's going to take care of that? What about the money that we've got
talking
tied
Iron
up?
Springs Road?
Iron Springs Road. Who's going to take care of that, and who's going to put the money in? We've already got money funded on it. There's about a mile, not just shy of a mile of road. Who's going to take that funding over to do the improvements on it now? There's the roundabout. There's a lot of things that I'm glad we're tabled it because there are a lot of things that need to be brought up between the county and the city in this. As a building official, projects like this probably should go into the city because they do have the infrastructure, but it needs to go the right way. I don't know that this road annexation to an island, standalone island, is the right way. So I appreciate that, but there are some things that, yes, I would like to have the whole staff put their 2 cents in with the discussion of this too.
So Terry, help me understand with the legislature basically saying islands are illegal.
Well,
How are they getting around that?
I don't know. That's something we're going to have to ask Brett
because he's more involved in that, and maybe John, because I don't get into the annexation side as much, but it is an island. They said when Reed was here that they've got to have so much of the perimeter of that boundary that's being annexed contiguous to the city county city line for annexation.
How much? 25%?
So I believe it was in 2016 that John Westwood ran some legislation that allowed for the leaving of a peninsula or an island, but it had to be approved by the county commission, and that's the law under which that's that law listed on the code, and yeah, that's been on the books since then. But before then, see, at first I didn't like that law. Then I realized, oh no, it gives some regulation because it was the Wild West.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking, of course, this is a lot of growth ago in Cedar City, but the area by Horse Alley was like pea soup.
Well,
but there was that all happened before that new regulation, and so at least under this, the commissioners get to review it.
and I appreciate that law, but we've got 24 islands within the city.
Right.
That's county property within the city that has not been addressed because Cedar City doesn't want
Buena
it
Vista.
because it's not up to their standards. This is going to set precedents for, okay, we can get this. We got another project 10 miles west that we met with, and that this mayor was there. Are we going to try to annex this under the same situation? 10 miles away. They've got 15 to 20 miles of sewer line they're going to have to run for the next project. What are we going to do? Where are we going to stop and allowing them? Are they just going to be able to pick up Iron Springs, keep going west to what they want? That's my concern. Is it's going to set precedents also with where they're at and the things that will affect water, sewer, roads, management and maintenance, and all that stuff. So I appreciate being able to let you know my 2 cents for this. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. Okay, we will convene as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. Agenda item number 6 is discussion and presentation from R Plus Energies on proposed Appaloosa 2 solar battery project, presented by R Plus.
So, Commissioner Robinson, I'm going to do a quick intro and a little contextual background here. So, in meeting with R Plus Energies and actually some other solar and battery projects, Adam Long, our consulting attorney, have been very clear to communicate your feedback about incentives. So in the past solar projects, we have, or I say we as in the county, has incentivized solar projects. And the highest has been up to 70%, the lowest 38.5%. And one thing that we as staff heard loud and clear is that if other energy projects like this come, we need to do a couple things. First of all, the commission is not interested in incentivizing particularly solar at levels that we had in the past or at all. If there is incentivizing, the commission would like to see newer projects, things like the battery projects or different types of energy projects that maybe we don't have as many of in the past. And we've seen the Clearway battery project come in of recent. And so we've communicated that with them, just making sure they knew where you were at. And I recommended to them before they try to draft an agreement and bring it for approval that I thought it would be wise for them to come and have a public discussion with you and get feedback in the public forum to say, here's R Plus Energy, here's what they're thinking, and get your feedback on maybe what you would be willing or interested in. If not at all, then that's clearly stated. Or if you want to, give some feedback and have them come back and present to you. So that's kind of the context in which they are coming to you. I appreciate R Plus Energies. They've been very listening, and you can ask them. I've been very unafraid to communicate the sentiment of the commission on these things. One last note is, please keep in mind that where a lot of these projects are happening are on properties that, I'm just going to pull out a random number, but maybe we bring in only $1,000 a year in property tax. And when these projects come in, say we bring in, $100,000 on property tax, and say you fund or you refund or incentivize 50%. Well, 50% of 100,000 is $50,000, which is a significant increase than what it was receiving before. And that's some of the premise behind it. But one of the things that you as commissioners also mentioned is the timeline in which these run. When the percentage is so high, by the time the incentive is done, the properties have depreciated, the solar properties have depreciated enough that when the incentive's done, we're really not getting a ton more. And so just understand that we as staff have very clearly communicated that. Adam Long, we didn't feel it was necessary for him to drive down, but he is listening online. And so if there are questions that you have for him or have for R Plus Energies before after this discussion, before they come back, we're happy to address those. So thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David, for the introduction, and good morning, commissioners. My name's Teresa Foxley. I am the Chief of Staff for R Plus Energies. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I'm joined by Dallin Clements, who's our developer on this project, and then also have a few colleagues that are sitting in the back there, some other individuals from our development, tax, and community teams, and we all appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I do have a short presentation prepared, and I guess actually before I get into this, I would also like to thank Commissioner Blake, members of the building team, members of the economic development team, Adam, who we recently hosted on a site visit of another one of our projects in Emery County, which is a combined solar plus battery project, now the largest in the state that is currently operational. It was great to have the opportunity to showcase that project and would open up the invitation for others if you'd like to come and see a project, although, of course, you have many in your own backyard already. Do I advance my own slides, Jonathan, or? Great, Phil, I think we're ready for the next one. Thank you. Okay. As David mentioned, really the purpose of today's presentation is to give a little bit of familiarization of R Plus to the Commission. Some of you I know well, others of you I'm meeting now for the first time. But then also to just sort of share a proposed process that is one that has been suggested to us by David and Adam on how we might advance the discussions related to the Appaloosa 2 project. So would like to introduce you to the CRA, share some preliminary details and answer questions that you have. I understand this is a little bit of a deviation from your typical process, but then we would hope to, in a future meeting, convene as the CRA agency again, at which point in time we would work through all of the different taxing entities, but come back to you with a negotiated community reinvestment project area plan and budget at that time. We would plan to submit that by August 14th after taking your feedback today, and then get on a hearing sometime in September, which would provide enough notice period for the public to weigh in and comment as well. Thank you, Jonathan. Just a quick bit of background for us, and Commissioner Blake has seen some of the pictures in this slide before, but our Iron County really is at the core of our business is R Plus. So the picture on the far left there is our CEO, Luigi Resta, standing next to Coy Stoll. And the way that Luigi entered into this market was sort of by happenstance, but a young missionary knocked on his door. That missionary was Kelly Stoll. I know Dennis Stoll had been very interested in sustainability. Kelly and Luigi sort of hit it off, and when Kelly returned home from his LDS mission, he invited Luigi out to come and consider their family homestead property for a solar project, which ultimately became the Red Hills Solar Project, the first project, grid-scale utility project in the state of Utah, right here in Iron County. From then, a few other projects have been developed, but ultimately in 2018, R Plus Energies was founded by Luigi Resta and by another Utah family, the Gardner family. And we are proudly headquartered here in the state of Utah. We have about 50 employees in the state, and another 20 employees that are in Idaho and elsewhere in the western United States. But really proud of our western roots, and particularly proud of our Iron County roots. In the 6 years since the company was founded, we have brought online 3 projects in Utah. The first project being the Graphite Solar Project in Carbon County, the next project being the Appaloosa Project here in Iron County, and then, as I mentioned just recently, we energized the Green River Energy Center, which is a project in Emery County. The impact that we have had on the state is one that we're proud of, with over $60 million in projected tax revenue from these projects. We really pride ourselves on hiring local first, and we've developed a wonderful network of partners here. So we've worked with over 20 Utah businesses that we have utilized on project here in Utah. But then we've also found that the workforce is so strong that we take those companies with us elsewhere into other states where we operate, like Idaho and Nevada. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is we also have established a scholarship program. Every time we reach construction on a project, we open up a new scholarship. We have an endowed scholarship with Southern Utah University, and the parameters of the scholarship are pretty simple. Are you from Iron County, and do you want to stay in Iron County after you get your certificate or your degree? And we've had some wonderful stories of folks who've been able to continue to pursue their professional training and education through this scholarship program. The project itself is AS2, so just a couple of statistics on the project, or where you're seeing the map. So the project is just off of Lund Highway, and it's adjacent to the Appaloosa Solar Project. It is what we call a surplus interconnection project, which means when we developed AS1, we invested in and made some pretty significant upgrades in the grid to enable us to interconnect that project. This surplus project would allow us to take advantage of some of that excess capacity that's in the grid, but it will require a battery in order to do so. So the project is, at first and foremost, a 200 megawatt battery energy storage system project, and the battery may be charged either from the grid, so if there's excess energy that's on the grid at any given time, maybe it's solar that's coming up from California, if they're overproducing solar or some other resource, the battery will soak up that extra energy or capacity and then put it onto the grid when it's called for. The project may also be solar charged behind the battery, but we're still sorting through those commercial discussions with potential off-takers, and there are benefits to both, pros and cons to both. But the project at its core is a battery project because it's a surplus interconnection project. The capital investment just for the battery project would be $145 million in capital investment. If we were to also construct the solar, that would add an additional $105 million to the project. So we're talking about anywhere from 145 to about 250 million in investment in Iron County. We have had a great working relationship with planning and zoning and do have a conditional use permit for the project, so we're not asking for that today. And we would, where we are really in the engagement process, would be again here with the CRA, which is what brings us to the commission. The project is entirely sited on private land, and it's the same family ownership that was with Appaloosa Solar One. I know we've gotten some feedback from your team and staff that really a preference for development on private land, so that you all can enable private landowners to utilize their land as they see fit, and not disrupt public land that might be accessible for multiple different uses by other types of interested parties. I think that sort of recaps the project, but Dallin, is there anything that you would add to what I mentioned in the project overview?
No, I think the big thing is just the strength of, we already have relationships with the staff and county. Building on that is going to help the project be successful.
Yeah. And then any questions from the commissioners on the project?
We don't have enough time to discuss my concerns about solar and the eventuality of what will happen with them. You showed a picture of Coistol with the first project, which has now been flipped 3 times to an owner that he cannot work with, that will not allow him to do the intended use of that. He no longer has the ability to graze that. they've gone in and killed all the vegetation, and so now it's a sand dune that blows out onto the county road, and we get complaints from other residents in the county. That's just to start off the conversation. So I have deep concerns with solar, because all they are is a monetary mechanism for these big entities to get their tax breaks and then flip as soon as they're done with that. I might be wrong in that, but that's what I'm seeing. So I have a lot of angst about it. And then even a bigger concern is at the end of the life cycle of those solar panels, when all the incentives are gone, they're just going to declare bankruptcy and walk away and leave that private landowner with an enormous hazardous waste material on their land that we are not set up to take care of. And I don't know where the nearest landfill is that's set up to take care of that. So I'm very concerned about this.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for sharing those concerns, and certainly have heard some of them from your team, so that doesn't take me by surprise at all. And if it's okay, I'm happy to respond to a few of those now. But on the sort of ownership flip structure, totally appreciate that. They are very capital intense. It's a capital intense business. And R+, as we've grown, we used to develop and sell projects as and we would refresh the capital that we received from the sale of a project to put that into growing the business. Happily now we are at a point where we are both developing and owning and operating our projects. I've mentioned it a couple of times, and so I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record, but the project in Emery County, we will own and operate that long term. We would intend to own and operate this project long term and would not want to create those headaches for either the landowner, Russ Rubber, who we know well, or for the county, which I understand that there has been some issues sometimes in finding a responsive person on the other end of the line. I've shared with Adam and David that we'd be happy to sort of contract around putting a dedicated point of contact or somebody that you could call and reach out to should you have any concerns like dust mitigation or other. As a result, we're also happy to contract to that or put some financial assurances in place to give the county some comfort that during the construction operations and then ultimate decommissioning of the project that no one would be left holding the bag. The state of Utah did put into place a law that passed during the last legislative session, the 2026 legislative session, that does require grid-scale solar developers now to post a decommissioning bond to address some of those concerns.
Good.
So
that's a start.
Yeah, and that could be posted either with the county or with the landowner. And then as far as the waste is concerned, the state of Utah also last year passed a law that was run by, both of these bills were run by Representative Colin Jack, but that creates a recycling study. So the Division of Environmental Quality is now tasked with coming up with a study and ultimately a regime that will handle any decommissioned solar waste. First, testing to make sure that it doesn't have any hazardous material before it goes into a public landfill. We already do this on if we have any breakage with our panels in transport, and then we send them out to be recycled. 98% of a solar panel can actually be recycled. It's mostly glass and aluminum. And then there are some very precious other components of them that as more solar projects have come online, now there's enough of a stream there that there's recycling centers that are being built in Nevada, so one very close to here where we would be able to send any decommissioned panels. And nearly all of the panels are recyclable, but certainly we hear that. And then a lot of the, you've got the piles that are driven. That's all steel. That will be reused. And so the industry has evolved quite a lot since those early years of 2010 as well. And just want to give you a little bit of insight into that, and also share that R+ wants to be a good partner, and we will put our money where our mouth is through contractual obligations to give the county comfort that we're not going to leave you holding the bag.
How's that bond set up? Is it on a percentage of the overall?
Yeah,
that
there's
to where, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, so the legislation isn't very prescriptive about what the bond is or needs to be, simply that one needs to exist. The way that we've never built a project as our plus that doesn't have some sort of a decommissioning bond attached to it, and what we usually do is go out and get an appraisal for what it would cost to decommission the project, what any salvage value would be, and then we bond to a percentage of that that's somewhat at a market rate.
To a percentage above total value or below total value?
We do it to total salvageable value.
Okay.
And we do that with a third party, non in-house appraiser, which is usually done through our engineering firms.
So along with what Ken was saying, as you drive through Richfield going south or north, solar panels on both sides of the road. They're all pointed different directions. Are you familiar with that project?
I'm familiar with it.
Is it even operable?
I'm familiar with it because everyone brings it up. I don't know who owns that project, and I can't say that I've laid eyes on it personally. But it sounds like it is, people who drive by it often mention that the panels appear to be quite ski-wampus. But I don't know really anything more about it than that.
I'm just curious. Thanks.
I should go look at it though, because people do bring it up when I mention I'm in the industry. So,
Do you have any comments?
No, not really. I've toured R Plus facilities and had a relationship with Teresa for a long time, kind of in these matters and with, on the economic development side. So I really don't have any questions.
Okay.
I did follow up with Adam Long while you all were talking and asked whether they all had a sunset cleanup requirement in the project area plans, even on the old ones. And he mentioned that it's probably part of the CUP, and Terry feels like that there is a decommission plan required. I don't know what kind of teeth they have, but
The problem is there is, John.
will you come up?
Terry and Brett could probably speak to this, and we've talked about this, but yes, you will decommission this, but there's no money to do it. There's no bond that says we're the benefactor not if they disappear, where'd the money go? Because it just says it will be done, and that's where the weakness is.
Or if they're the fifth or sixth owner,
right?
What teeth do we have?
So they haven't had to post a bond and put in an escrow or anything?
No, and that's what my question was. Who's the benefactor of this bond?
That's what needs to change in our CUP,
Right.
is that we need to have money put up front in a bond that's accessible when this happens, or if it does. Yes, correct.
yeah.
Because I think we've made it very clear we don't want the used panels in our landfill.
Yeah. When we have done this in the past, we have posted either to a municipality or to a landowner, but not to both. And the legislation that was passed by the state has that same either or option, that it can run to the landowner or to the county. And I would just ask the commission, if it does include this in a future ordinance, I would be happy to help, sort of share what is the industry, just to make sure that the county understands what the pros and cons of the bond posting to the county versus to the landowner, and what additional regulatory costs are being added to the project, so that there's transparency around that. Great. Thank you, Jonathan. And Adam, again, happy to work with you on that through the CRA or other. So what we are asking for today is that the commission, that we'd like to come back to the commission and other taxing entities that compose the CRA with a 40% rebate going back to the agency, and 60% of the taxes being retained by the taxing entity. Why we're asking for this really is one, and why we're asking for that amount is our projects do compete internally for capital. So we have 35 projects in our portfolio, and one of my roles as an executive in the business is to figure out which projects will receive additional investment. And certainly having some additional tax relief from a local community helps us justify internally where we allocate that capital. And then additionally, it makes the project more competitive. Every project that we build, we go through a competitive bidding process where we're competing against other developers who also have projects. So maybe in Iron County, Beaver, Emery, Carbon, Tooele, Box Elder, you name it. So many counties in Utah and outside of Utah are developing solar projects. So this would be actually towards the lower end of the market, but would keep us at least competitive in the process. And we're asking for the 40% because we understand that to be at the low end of the benchmark for Iron County. And we have tried to be responsive to feedback that we've received from county staff on, again, contracting around some of these things that would hopefully give the county some comfort on the long-term viability of these projects and the decommissioning, along with committing to allowing, again, contractually certain types of grazing within the project area. Also understanding that the county's, I think, has told us, at least, like, we really want new, interesting technologies like batteries. So this project is centered around batteries. And so that's what our ask would be. Why we think it's fair to the county. The best projects generate a lot of tax revenue on a very dense amount of acreage. So, solar, of course, does require acreage in order to reach grid scale. We can put a lot of capital to work in a very small footprint through the batteries. It requires relatively limited county services once it's operational. There's not a lot of, good or bad. The projects put a ton of capital to work. They don't have a significant amount of full-time employees attached, so there's not a lot of county services that are required, schools, roads, etc. Again, I've mentioned this previously, but we're at the low end of the incentive range. More than half of the unabated taxes would go to the taxing entities, and it would create a durable long-term increase to the county tax base. I think David mentioned it in his introductory remarks, but the project right now, I think project area is generating about $300 a year in property taxes to the county. If that land continued to be used as it is today, we think over the next 20 years it would generate about $6,000 of property taxes, whereas if the county and R+ were to agree on the 40% tax increment going back to the agency, with 87% of that going back to the project, the county would net $9 million, and that's just on the battery portion. I told Dallin, let's under promise and overperform here. So we put the most conservative estimate on capital expenditure on what that would generate if we were to build both the battery and the solar project. This would result in quite a higher number.
Is that revenue, is that total tax revenue or revenue to the county? Do you know?
That's total tax to all the entities, so counties and school district, yeah, and the other smaller entities, yeah.
Does this become personal property where it depreciates quickly?
A lot of it is personal property, yes. So it's on.
Well, that's just it decreases rapidly.
It decreases over about a 16-year period of time. Yeah. So you do capture most of this. The net present value of it is high because a significant portion of it is captured in the earlier years before it starts to taper down. I think that's our last substantive slide. The last one was just to we've been happy to take questions throughout, and would of course welcome more, either here in this meeting or in a pull aside or separate meeting, or through your team. That has been great to work with.
We've had this discussion about batteries, or not batteries, but solar panels when they're worn out. You know, what about when batteries wear out? Are you guys willing to post a bond to dispose of those?
Yeah, I mean, we would post the decommissioning bond for the entire project.
That would go to the county or the private landowner.
Yeah. And the batteries, I would say, solar now has been deployed at grid scale for over 10 years, really. I mean, 2016 was when you started to see a lot of major projects coming online. Batteries are a bit behind that, but there is already a developing recycling program for batteries. Frankly, it's going to be bigger with the EVs, right? Like, they're going to be the ones that are going to be pushing the discussion on battery recycling. And the grid scale projects like ours will take advantage of that. But happy to take questions about, battery safety, battery decommissioning, whatever the commission is interested in. We want to show up with support and with resources. So,
being an expert in this area, and now that bonding is part of the decommissioning, have you seen where the bond, and there was a gap between the bond and the actual decommissioning as costs have risen over time? None of us can predict inflation. We saw inflation explode in the last 5 years, and so what has been your experience, if you don't mind, when there's a shortfall, a gap?
I have not seen that, and I think that is because all of our projects are still operational, so we haven't had to reach the point of decommissioning with.
But you haven't heard of other space?
I've not, no, but I'm happy to take that as a follow-up to see how other communities and developers are dealing with that.
Did you have a question or comment?
I just have a comment. So,
Could you come up to the mic, please? Tell us your name.
my name's David DeGraff. I live here locally. I've worked for solar companies now for about 6 years, or actually, no, 8 years. And I'm just listening to this, but I don't work for R+, but I've been a beneficiary of solar and of the jobs that it brings in. And so my team, it's blessed greatly for work. And then we bring on local people to come spray the sites. We work with local farmers, and we also have sheep on all the sites that I currently manage. And so I know there's some, I've actually worked with Coy in the past. I used to manage Red Hills. And so it's unfortunate to hear that story, because we had a great relationship with him and worked with him. And also, not only did we graze a sheep on that site when we had it, but we also used him for other things with that project. So that's unfortunate to hear, but I just want to say that not all companies are that way, and it sounds like R+ sounds like they're good stewards. I know we're good stewards, and so I wouldn't base all solar off of that in particular case. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So go ahead and reconvene as the Iron County Commission. Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible approval of rural county grant funding allocation as recommended by the Iron County Economic Development Advisory Board for the 2026 fiscal year.
Okay. Commission, and John, are you pulling that letter up? So per state requirement, well, let me go into two things. Because we're a rural county, the Governor's Office of Economic Development issues all rural counties, classified rural counties in the state, $200,000 a year to reinvest into economic development initiatives. Historically, here in Iron County, that has gone toward small business, because as we've kind of heard from like R+ and some of these other projects, incentives and help toward big business looks different than resources and incentives and help toward small business, if that makes sense. And so, as part of the requirement of having this funding from the governor's office, we are required to have an economic development board for the county. That board includes representatives from the county, from each of our cities here in town, as well as the Business and Innovations Center, and some others, which you've approved in the past. And so what you see before you here, and John, if you could just scroll up to all the bullet points. This is a letter from Joni Anderson, who serves as our current chair of the board. And in the past, this pretty much follows what we've done in the past as far as funding. So, for example, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center, where they have their Hive program, their maker space, some of those things, where basically they're helping with some of these startup businesses and these small businesses. So, other things that goes on in the Business and Innovation Center is helping businesses to come up with a business plan. How do they initiate and grow and scale their business? They even assist with things, Joni's office even assists with things with if you're trying to sell your business. And so these are resources. And so some of the funding, the board and the commission, the board has recommended and the county commission has approved funding to go toward that. The Women in Business conference that they have each year. And then here, the small business grant that we do every year. It's a 1-to-1 match grant. It's a competitive grant. We go through 3 rounds of reviews. We've received the upwards of, I think, 46 applications and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of requests. And each year, the board has and the review committee has approved anywhere between 3 to 5 different small businesses. They've ranged from small manufacturers to local bakeries to the Aviation Academy his last name's Jared Britt, who used to work for SUU Aviation and helped initiate a lot of their programs. Well, he's started a business where he's instituting educational programming for aviation programs across the country. And he's created equipment that he sells and he's manufacturing that. So he's been one of our recipients. Because the requests, we've received so many small business requests, the board this year said, let's increase the amount. So last year there was $65,000. $60,000 went toward grants and $5,000 went toward like promotional materials, creating highlight videos of our winners. And this year the board said, let's this year see how we do and put $85,000 toward those small business grants, because small business is kind of the heartbeat of our communities. While we bring in, part of my job is to bring in these big, large-scale businesses, whether retail or manufacturing, we also want to make sure we have adequate support of small business. Some of those other small business initiatives are sign, facade, and tenant grants. This is first come, first serve. So if there's businesses, and we prioritize our main streets first. So, for example, Main Street Parowan, Main Street Cedar City. This is if they have a sign, because the sun is beating down like it does. If you're driving on Main Street in Cedar City, you see all the south-facing signs are black, and the north side of their signs are in mint condition. And so, but this is also if a business, new businesses have come in to redo the front of their building. Paul, you look like you almost have a question.
I have a concern.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Because when I was on the city council, we gave some grants to businesses downtown for new signage and different things. And I'm not sure there's one that we gave money to that's in business now.
Well,
So I want to know what the success rate is.
Yeah.
The failure rate, and what if they default on what if they go out of business?
Yep.
How do we recoup that money? I'm not sure whether taxpayers should be in the business of funding business.
I don't disagree with you, and that's why we also have this committee and this funding each year. We can utilize it different. Now we do need to get our application into the governor's office here shortly, but the success rate. Only one of the businesses that I'm aware of that has done the sign grant has gone out of business, and that's the axe throwing business. And quite frankly, when they got the grant, they did not utilize it to the extent that was expected, but we looked at the expectations and the parameters that were set, and this is when I first got here, and they weren't sufficient to clarify what the expectation was. And so after that, we actually clarified the expectation. One of the small business grants that went out of business was she sold her business, was the, it's Sweet, what was the bakery name? Oh, Yummy Tummy. She went out of business after getting this grant. But those are the only two that I know that have been out of business. Bullock's is a recipient of this grant. If you go to Bullock's and see all their signage outside, that is the sign, facade, and tenant grant. The pub, if you go into the pub, they used to be a walk-up counter space, almost like a Cafe Rio. Well, they wanted to create more seats, and they wanted to create a bar area. The small business grant helped fund that. And these are one-to-one matches. It's not, they don't get straight funding. Summit Landscape,
So it's 50-50 match.
50-50 match. They have to match. And Summit Landscape, for example, they actually used all three of these. And so this isn't just necessarily free money, because these businesses, they go through a rigorous process where there's there's a pre-application, then a full application, and then they actually have to come in and present to the board. And then only those businesses that the board feels have met all these thresholds and can meet the match are awarded. Cedar Sports is another one that has utilized this to expand their equipment as well as do their signage. So Commissioner Cousins, we actually share that same sentiment as you do. And so we want to make sure that any businesses that are being awarded these aren't just startup businesses. That's one of the things we clarified in the small business grant. We don't just want somebody trying to start up. The Business and Innovation Center has programs for that to help assist with that. But this funding, we want to make sure goes towards businesses who are trying to take what they're doing successfully and step it up to the next notch, to give them leverage, if that makes sense.
We started our business 40 years ago this year, and
Congratulations.
I've never accepted a grant once in 40 years, and we just blood, sweat, and tears and made it work.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if I honestly have a problem with government being in the business and seeing what my experience in the city council and what happened. I have a problem with it.
I appreciate you sharing that, and we share that sentiment. And I had heard some of those stories when I got here, and I said, well, if we're going to do this, we need to have a little bit better criteria, clearer criteria, and better expectations. In fact, when Tricia was the assistant in the office, what she started doing was with every business to make sure they are accountable. She met with them every month to make sure that they were meeting their obligations in time. So we very much agree with that. And next year, I think we are going to maybe approach this a little bit differently, and maybe some of the funding that you've seen here, like Placer AI, is economic development software that goes toward helping us do geofences, helping us see what is our leakage to other areas. And so that cost is actually split between the tourism office, my office, and city events. We all split that cost for that software, and this grant helps us cover some of the costs for that software, is what that does. And if you'll keep scrolling up, Iron County Leaders Academy. Are all of you commission members familiar with that? The Iron County Leaders. This is the board said, well, let's try and have pay for 2 attendees on the Iron County Leaders Academy, and Jacob Miner was one of them, and I believe, is it Mary that's going this year? Mary, the new city PIO, is going, and then Mary, the PIO, is going with city funding, and then also one other. What we're gonna let the Iron County Leaders Academy help subsidize some of the costs, and so that's what some of that's going to. And then the Cedar City Chamber of Commerce put in some requests, and their request, as per the board's recommendation, is let's see, $5,000 to help go towards some of the Cedar City Chamber events. And if you've been involved with the Chamber this last year with Tessa Douglas now as the new Chamber president, you've seen a night and day difference in how they're getting out there and how they're supporting small business. Another part of that is, they have a foundation that has existed for a while, and that foundation allows them to do a variety of things, but they haven't had any seed funding really to help get the foundation going, and so they're helping to do that. And then lastly, at the Business and Innovation Center, the Chamber has gotten lots of sponsorships to just redo the boardroom so that they actually have a nice space that's not quite like, basically they're using like student type tables that fold and some older chairs, and they're trying to make it like a nice boardroom that the Chamber could utilize, and the $2,500 is going to help go toward that as well. So I don't know if you have any questions or if there's anything that I missed in that. We're just looking for a motion to approve to submit this recommendation as the application for this year's use of that funding. Now, Commission, keep in mind, if for some reason, we do the small business grants and we end up only granting $60,000, not the $85,000, all we have to do is go back to the Governor's Office of Economic Development and say, hey, we've got $20,000 extra that we decided not to use toward that. As long as it has an economic development use, we can reallocate that toward a different economic development use. Any questions? Or Joni Anderson also is here, and Jacob Miner, who are both on our board, if you would like to hear from them or if you have any questions for me.
I don't have any questions. And before the law changed, I've served on the committee to award these grants for a number of years. It is a really rigorous process, and we've seen some really great jump starts to some small businesses. And it is money that's allocated by the state for this exact purpose.
Yep. That's its designated use.
It's a designated use that doesn't come from any other coffers, except for this is the intended use from that. There's small businesses that that still reach out, and they're appreciative of that program. Does Luke sit on that committee now?
Luke does. So what they want, the reason why Commissioner Blake doesn't sit on the committee now is they said, we want to make sure that anybody sitting on the committee is recommending to the commission. So for Commissioner Blake to sit on the committee and recommend to the commission seemed like an unintended conflict of interest. So we made sure we separated that with Commissioner Blake, and Luke now sits on that committee. And Luke works with me hand in hand throughout the year to pay these allocations and make sure that people are keeping their obligations.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion then.
It's my turn. I don't know whose turn it is.
Go ahead.
I'll move for approval of the rural county grant funding allocation as recommended by the Iron County Economic Development Advisory Board for the 2026 fiscal year.
Second that motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Item number 8, Cedar City, Iron County Fiscal Year Economic Development.
Okay, third time's the charm. So each year I give a fiscal year recap to the city and a mid-year recap to you, and vice versa for the city. So this is kind of the mid-year recap, but you'll see it refers to fiscal year per the city. I think John's going to pull up the PowerPoint, and then I also had a more detailed handout that I had sent John, which if you don't have that handout, we can make sure we email that to you. It just has more details of what's going to be in this.
Sorry, let me just.
Oh, you're fine.
Too many PowerPoints this morning.
While he's looking that up, just to note that rural county funding for next year, one of the things that we've talked about is maybe setting aside half of it to be a little more fluid in case, say, for example, the county needs to do a traffic study or some sort of study. that will benefit economic development, that funding could be utilized for something like that. And the governor's office is encouraging that type of use because, a lot of times when you want to do infrastructure things for business, you have to first make sure there's a study in place. And so next year, the board will be looking at more things like that to make sure some of those dollars are freed up for some of the uses, I think, Commissioner Cousins, that maybe you're referring to as well for economic development purposes. Okay, so if you'll just go to the next slide. So the Iron County the Cedar City and Iron County Economic Development Office, our mission, I'm just going to read this, is to serve as a community liaison to inform and engage the public, support business, create jobs, and diversify the economy and revenues that enhance quality of life. Essentially, my office's job, I always say, is to create jobs and to create new sources of tax revenues to diversify our taxes to help lift the burden off of our taxpayers, right? So our taxpayers aren't necessarily paying everything that we're bringing in business. Also, the unique dynamic that I have is to represent both Cedar City and unincorporated Iron County. The huge benefit, I think, with that is similar. My role often in say for the county or for the city is, say I have a development and they're coming and they're working with engineering and planning, and engineering and planning are just a pain in their butt. They just are such a pain, right, Brett? Never a pain. Well, sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, "Hey Dave, we're trying to work through this," and I'm kind of the internal liaison to say, "Hey Brett, help me better understand this." I joke that I'm the C3PO. I translate what Brett's trying to accomplish with the developer, and vice versa. I translate what the developer is trying to accomplish with Brett to say, "Hey, what are the options?" If Brett says, per ordinance, we absolutely can't do this, then Brett and I look and say, well, based on what they're trying to accomplish, what are the options? Do they need to ask for a change of ordinance, or are there other options that maybe they haven't thought of? And so I jokingly say Brett being a pain because a lot of times internal staff also feels like developers are being a pain in their neck and not checking all the boxes in their applications or doing the things that they want. And so my goal is to say, hey, neither of us are a pain. We're both trying to find some success and create jobs and diversify our tax revenues. So let's see if we can find solutions to make that happen. And so what I'm going to walk through on the next is some of our key focuses: manufacturing and distribution, retail, small business, tourism, renewable energy, as we've talked about some today, and then key supporting industries are higher education and transportation. So obviously our university, our technical college, and transportation, our airport, our rail, and I-15 are so vital to economic development here. That belt loop as well that the county, I know, has been heavily focused on. To give you some demographics, I know the couple that was up here earlier, they shared about population of 68,000, and there's some variations out there, but we try to utilize what the census provides us and maybe what the state puts out. And so as of right now, the population of Iron County is around 67,000, which is close to the 68 that was mentioned earlier. Cedar City population is about 41,000, so you can see 2/3 of the population live in Cedar City proper, and I would say half of that last third live right on the outskirts of Cedar City, and then everybody else lives in Parowan and Enoch and kind of in between. If you look, manufacturing jobs have steadily held at about 10% of all of our jobs in the county. So manufacturing plays a key role here, and our average annual wage is about $46,000. So for example, and I recommend this as well, the state has requirements. If a company comes to them and wants incentives, they say you have to at least meet the minimum county average wage. And I will tell you, all the businesses that have leveraged that through the state have actually pretty far exceeded that county average minimum wage, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to increase that county minimum or that county average annual wage. Go ahead, John. This is just to give you a perspective on kind of the diversification of the types of industries that are here. In Cedar City, you can see educational services, That includes SUU, Southwest Tech, the school district, who are some of our largest employers, or are our largest employers here. But in the county, construction right now is actually the number one industry for employment. Educational services second. And as you can see, 10% of it is manufacturing. And we've seen some ticks up in retail in Cedar City, as well as other places in the county. For example, the announcements of the Linns, that's going to, well, I mean, that's in Enoch proper, but this looks at the county as a whole. So the Linns in Enoch, as well as some of the things happening here in Parowan and other places. Go ahead, John. So this is housing. This is just for Cedar City. But what my office is going to do, so previously I had an economic development assistant, and we changed that to an economic development coordinator, because there's two key components in economic development besides the separate from the creating jobs and tax revenues. What I'm talking about is two things to make economic development successful. One is building relationships, and two is having great data. And so I made the economic development coordinator position also an analyst. And so part of what we're going to do is we're going to start pulling from all of the cities housing data, as well as within the county, so we can have a more real-time perspective on what our growth is. Is it single family? Is it townhomes or high density? And as you can see, about 62%, at least in Cedar City proper, which is 2/3 of our county population, is single family homes. Okay, so let's dive into some of the meat. So some of the focus this last year, typically, like what we do is we respond to requests from information from big companies, and we would respond to a ton of those. But this last year in particular, we have landed a bunch of projects, and some of the focus has been right now is, hey, we got projects who have bought property or bought existing buildings. The focus now needs to be more on helping them get to the finish line and open doors. So, for example, a company has bought the Mueller Copper Building, PPI America, the Smead Building. They haven't publicly announced who they are yet, but they'll be making public announcements. Utah Steel started leasing Genpack East Building, but they're looking to buy it. And so of our existing...
David, Utah Steel, what do they do?
They do a variety of things.
Manufacture, or they manufacture steel components, or?
That's my understanding. And I don't know, Mike, if you have some to...
I'm a little foggy on Utah Steel as well. I don't know exactly what they do.
Yeah, they like... Because I'm not an expert in their industry, I hesitate to say exactly the description of what they do. But yes, they're manufacturing steel parts and bringing in things. And come on, Daisy. So this is Daisy, our new economic development coordinator, and she can dive into some of the specifics.
Yeah, they also do some galvanization for BZI, and that's kind of how we brought them. Part of how we brought them to Iron County is through their relationship with BZI. And yeah, that will go into some of the data center construction in Iron County, if that's a thing, or outside of the county.
That's good.
Okay.
So, and it looks like John's brought up the... Thank you, Daisy.
Website.
Brings up some of the stuff that they do. PPI America, for example, that purchased the Mueller Building, they do large-scale, like, industrial pipe and fittings for, like, municipal and county infrastructure. And that's who they target, water conservancy districts, things like that.
So copper piping or metal piping?
The PVC piping. Yeah, they're not doing copper or metal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, John, let's continue back down to where we were.
Where do you want to be?
Scroll down a couple more. Oh, here we go. So here's who sits on our economic, and I'm sorry, it looks like when this converted to a PDF, it kind of wonked out some of the stuff a little bit. But we have our historic downtown economic committee, our Cedar City and Iron County Economic Development Committee. That's a Cedar City committee by ordinance. And then go one more. Oh, I guess the board that we talked about earlier. Some reason I think it's because when it converted to PDF, it pushed out the boards. Yeah, the board that's on there. Yeah. All right, keep going. Let's go to the next one. That's just a list of who sits on. So this is really the meat of what we want to talk about. So we, on the request for information through the state and through EDC Utah, we submitted to about 16 new project submissions. This year alone, we've had about 7 new project announcements, some of them of which I just named, but let me name a couple others. Project Canyon / Project Lucy. So that's Garfield County's doing the mining, and here they plan to build a smelter.
Where's that smelter going?
They have not selected the location, but
$64 question.
yeah, but they have announced that they are going to Iron County, and they've actually committed to the governor's office already that they will be in Iron County. They're just going through the process of selecting their property. So. Yeah. And then Taunton Tubes, which is at the Nautilus 1 building, BZI, Hive Plastics, which built, if you go on the Y in Iron Springs Roads on Frank Nichols' property, Hive Plastics. Hive Plastics actually was is a rotational molding company, but the owner previously owned a very long-standing and successful rotational rotational molding plastics company up in Brigham City. He sold the company with intent to retire. I think he moved somewhere in Washington County, and then his prior clients and his son, who worked for the new company, asked him to start a new one. But he had a 3-year non-compete, and at the end of 3 years, he said, "All right, we're back in business." And his son is primarily running that, but it's a great company. And Project Iron Hive, which is Ellis Electric. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with that. It was MCM Engineering, which was bought by Ellis Electric, which is a Korean company. If you're not familiar, Ellis Electric is actually originally was the same company as LG, if you're familiar with LG Electronics, and they split, and Ellis Electric does like large scale electrical components, boxes, etc., transformers, things like that. Then Utah Steel, we talked about that. And then Suncor, formerly, the artist formerly known as, what was it, Sunpro? And they're down over kind of near where the gel is a little bit, on Phil Schmidt's property. So those have been some of the cool announcements that we've had. If you want to continue. Oh, I dove into some of these already, so you could keep going. RailSync. We just wanted to give you some highlights. So having 2 rail transload facilities in Iron County, I think it's part of what's added to our boom and interest in Iron County. We have been able to position ourselves as a hub, which we already are, a manufacturing hub, but having that rail has been a big deal. And so I wanted to give you some stats of how it's taken off a lot of trucks off long haul, and now transitioning what comes in on rail, we can do the short haul with trucks. And so for every 1 rail car is about 4 truckloads on the road, which also helps preserve some of our road infrastructure we have. Go ahead, John. Okay.
One thing
yeah,
that
please.
I know one thing that some of these companies are really struggling with is power.
Mm-hmm.
And what can we do? And this may be way over your out of your lane, but I mean, it was really interesting to hear that Carbon County has nuclear. What can we do to get that here?
So let me tell you a couple conversations I have, and this will be a bit of a digression. And
Sorry to throw that in.
I think it's a great conversation.
It really, I mean, if these guys can't get power they need, it's a real problem. And I've heard it's becoming a problem.
Yeah, both power and equipment supply backup, if that makes sense. So, for example, I might have given this example in the past. When Seven Brothers Burgers was trying to come in, I'd heard this with manufacturers, but not a small burger joint. Rocky Mountain Power told them, it'll be 18 months before we can get a transformer for that property. The property was already built, and Seven Brothers was ready to move in. And what Rocky Mountain Power's approach is right now is to say, tell them worst case scenario. don't promise anything higher than the worst case scenario. So I was able to make a call, and within a week we were able to identify a transformer that could go there. So I'm going to touch on a couple things, so you'll have to forgive me. One of the things that got me excited about Ellis Electric is when they came and they started talking to the governor's office, they said, well, if there's an 18 to 24 and now we're hearing 36-month backup on that type of equipment, Ellis Electric said, well, we manufacture those. We can have those in 3 months for ourselves. And from what I understand, the state said, well, as long as you meet all the criteria and get approved for that, that's possible. And what I believe is that Ellis Electric on that backup, on that supply chain, can help facilitate that. And I think that's why the governor's office was so interested in it, because we're already having issues with power, which is what you're specifically asking about, and I'll get to that in a second. But first we got to address some of these supply chain issues, because our current manufacturers that are trying to come in, some of them have said, you know what, we're going to be 18 to 24 months out anyways by the time we open doors, so we'll just do that simultaneously, and that's okay.
It's the first thing they order.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's part of the other thing is the state wants to know, and we want to know, are you already on the list, right, to make sure. So getting into the power questions, Iron County is the #1 producer of renewable energy through solar right now. And I know there's some feelings about the incentive, and I don't disagree with that. And I think rightly so, mitigation concerns, with land and dust and eyesores and stuff like that. But one of the things that I think we can do, particularly, we have data centers. We have a lot of fake data centers, just entrepreneurs who see a good opportunity and want to try and do one. We've been trying to filter out who is real, who are real developers. And I'm not making this conversation about data centers. I'm only using it as an example. But one of the things that we want to start doing is, with some of the new legislation that was passed, we can do, I don't know if off-grid's the right word, we can do on-site generation for large-scale projects. And that's what some of the legit data centers are looking at. But that doesn't just have to be data centers. And part of what those can do is they can service anything that is adjacent, whether physically adjacent or business adjacent to that on-site power generation. Now, I'm speaking about a large, complex topic, but I'm putting it in very much layman's terms, just for not necessarily for you gentlemen who I know understand a lot of this, but for the public's understanding. And so some of the approach is saying, hey, if some of these large-scale manufacturing sites can do their own on-site power generation and can work through some of those nuances, then maybe we don't have to go through Rocky Mountain Power. Or and there's a lot of far-reaching ideas out there. I don't know that I want to go into those, but there's a lot of ideas being discussed. But I think on the more practical side, which still has a long road ahead of it, as you've well acknowledged, I think those are probably a couple of the most practical things to address supply chain, as well as address getting access to power. And I think working with partners, public-private partnerships, can help us say, hey, if solar or battery storage is going to happen here, or data center things are going to happen here, can we create a criteria policy, or a policy that has a criteria to say, hey, so much of that power generation needs to remain right here. And I think those are policy discussions that are going to be up to you and whatever the state dictates. But I think those are policy discussions that we are starting to have, and that I think are wise to really follow down on. I hope that kind of addresses some of what you're saying. I know it doesn't resolve it, because I don't know that I have the resolve. I don't think any of us do, but and I think some of the stuff that was being said earlier about all the money that's spent on addressing fires, when we could be using that money to address clearing the land and making sure that the land is where it is. Because the reason why I bring that up, Rocky Mountain or PacifiCorp's complaint is, well, we had all these fires in California, and all of our money is going toward that to rebuild our infrastructure. And that's not necessarily not true, but I also think it's almost a a scapegoat on why they're not providing sufficient service here locally. So anyways, yeah, did you want to say something?
Fear of the liability.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so we're just trying to be good partners. Honestly, even though I'm kind of harping on Rocky Mountain a little bit, we've tried to form really good relationships with Rocky Mountain Power, with Enbridge Gas as well, and with some of our renewable energy partners, Clearway, R Plus Energies, and some others. I think looking at the broad picture rather than, it's easy to get hung up on something, this particular thing that we might not like, but if we look at the broad picture and say, okay, how do we collectively, as a public entity or public-private partnerships, how can we address this issue together in a transparent public forum? I think we can address some of these issues over the next few years. So thanks for allowing me to kind of dive into that digression. High-level retail, we have 7 major retail development areas, and this is Cedar City focus. 2 announcements, projects, groundbreakings. As has been mentioned in the past, earlier, Enoch has Lynn's going in, and then Cedar City, we have announced a Winco. Thankfully, they put the sign up so people actually believe me on that announcement now. And they said they'll actually be submitting plans hopefully in the next month or 2. And then Smith's, first they're going to start on the south end of town. They're going to sell their current building once the new one's open. And then once that's kind of running a little bit, then they'll start putting more time and investment on the north one. So I would say the northern property, we're probably not looking at anything substantive moving there, which is by the bowling alley, for another 18 to 24 months. It could be longer than that because I think there's some other things they want to make sure in place first, but they've purchased the property and they're committed. These ribbon cuttings are between Cedar City Chamber of Commerce and my office and just others. We've had a lot of ribbon cuttings for businesses, and most of these, the majority of those are small businesses, and I would say a small percentage are some of those larger scale projects that I've mentioned. And then proactive outreach. What that means is, yes, for anybody listening, we have reached out to Sam's Club, to Costco, to Target. Yes, we've met with them. We're trying to tell our story. It takes time for them to understand the unique dynamic of our community. And I throw this stat out all the time. We're the #1 grossing Walmart in the state of Utah, and we waffle between number 2 and 3 for visitation in the state because Cedar City and Iron County are the rural hub for the whole southern half of the state. So even Panaca, Nevada comes and shops in Cedar City. Beaver goes to our Walmart. And then if they can't get what they need to in Cedar City, they either go down to St. George or up north to Salt Lake. But we're this rural hub. And so that's the story we're trying to communicate with these other retailers that we know we need, and we know that we can fill their doors and make good sales for them. Go ahead, John. Getting back to your question earlier, Commissioner Cousins, these are the businesses that were, and I'm not going to go into this too long, but were awarded last year: Finby Tech, Financial Business, Aviation Education Academy, the Hub Pizza. So they're going to open a second location. They originally started in Enoch and then moved to Cedar, and now they're opening up a second location in Enoch, and they'll be having a grand opening soon in Summit Landscape. And then the sign, facade, and tenant, those are some of the businesses that benefited from that. Go ahead, John. One of the things that the office, my Office of Economic Development, Town of Bryan Head, Cedar City, this county grant funding that we use every year, and I think I already said Visit Cedar City, Bryan Head. A lot of people who saw the public transportation in Cedar City thought it was just an old folks service to get people around town. And so we wanted to make it known that we do have a public transportation system and try and get that promoted a little bit more, and hopefully maybe that would help with some of the usage on that, as well as their roving billboards for our tourism that we have going on here. Go ahead. And then this is just what I presented to you a minute ago that you just approved. So I think that was probably my last slide. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry that went a little longer than intended, but I'm grateful for the good questions that you had.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
David works hard.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Agenda item number 9 is report on practical shooting event for the Utah Summer Games, Iron County Mountain Training Group, in collaboration presented by Patrick Brower.
I am Patrick Brower, owner of Iron Mountain Training Group. I got these match books I was going to give to you guys.
Thank you.
These are all from the practical shooting match from the Summer Games.
Thanks.
So that kind of just is something that we gave out to all the competitors. So I'm just here to do a report and kind of a shout out to the county for helping us with the range and stuff. The 2026 Summer Games practical shooting match was successfully held at the Iron County Shooting Range with 114 competitors, making it the largest practical shooting event in Utah Summer Games history, and also just the second event in Summer Games. This is the second year we've had it. Competitors completed 12 stages in a safe, professional, organized competition. If I have that video, maybe we can just play that in the background while I read this.
Did Cassie send it?
No, I sent it to you from Iron Mountain Training Group, Gmail. Should just be an MP4 format.
Okay, I didn't see it there. Keep going. It might have gone in my junk folder.
Alrighty. So tourism and economic impact. The event brought a significant number of visitors to Iron County. We had 114 total competitors. 72 competitors, roughly 63%, traveled from outside Iron County. 48 from elsewhere in Utah, but outside of Iron County. 20 from Nevada, 2 from Colorado, and 2 from California. We had estimated 25 competitors stayed overnight in Iron County. 12 plus hotel rooms were booked because of the event. Estimated 150 plus visitors came to Iron County when accounting for spouses, family members, and friends traveling with competitors. Visitors supported local hotels, restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, and other local businesses throughout the weekend, including Bowman's Cowboy Kitchen, which hosted our awards ceremony. They brought in like a roughly $770 worth of revenue that night that we had that event. Community support. The event was made possible through 16 local Southern Utah businesses that were sponsors for the match: Alta Bank, Always Towing, Barry's Bullets, Bowman's Cowboy Kitchen, Cannonball Welding, Desert Predator Custom, HSL Ammunition, Iron Depot, Jenkins Oil, Johnny Max, Performance Auto Customs, Premier Body and Paint, Rock Island Armory, Salt City Metal Coating, Tactical Performance Center, and the Vault Gun and Pawn. Also, the volunteers, the match was staffed by 15 plus dedicated volunteers that donated 200 plus hours in planning, stage construction, registration, scoring, range operations, awards, and teardown. Their dedication was instrumental in the success of the event. The event's success, largest practical shooting event in Utah Summer Games history. Competitors represented from 4 different states. Successfully completed all 12 stages safely and on schedule. No injuries or anything like that to report except for one heat illness that happened. We had medics on scene and everything that helped with that. So really successful as far as safety and everything like that. Many competitors have already expressed interest in returning for the 2027 event. Overwhelmingly positive feedback from competitors. With a couple things that we could do to make it better for next year as well. The value to Iron County, the event generated tourism by bringing competitors and their families to Iron County, resulting in increased business for local hotels, restaurants, fueling stations, grocery stores, and retailers. It also highlighted the Iron County Shooting Range as a premier venue capable of hosting large regional shooting sports and showcase Southern Utah to visitors from across the region. I'd also like to take the time to say Iron Mountain Training Group would like to sincerely thank Iron County for its continued support of the Utah Summer Games practical shooting event and for allowing us to utilize the Iron County Shooting Range. So in the books it shows the map of where we did it. And we usually use the reserve bays, but this time we expanded into all of the public bays, and they gave us those for a couple days, and we were able to make a really nice event with those 12 bays. The range is an outstanding facility that allows us to attract competitors from across Utah and neighboring states while creating a positive economic impact for our community. We appreciate the county's partnership and support and look forward to continuing to grow this event together for many more years to come. That being said, there was a couple bits of feedback that I got that people want a 2-day match, which we could easily do, and it would bring more people to the hotels and, you know, local businesses, gas stations, that kind of thing. With a little bit more time to set up, we could do the 2-day match, and we could provide staff for the whole match, which everybody said would be, you know, their main what they want to see better. So anyways, that's the end of my report. I don't know if now would be a good time to also to mention that we did establish our 501c3, the nonprofit. We're able to do some more things as far as help the county, help make the range grow, get grants and stuff from different organizations to help the NRA being one of them, to help grow the range like we had talked about before. I'm not sure if you guys remember any of that, but anyways, that's the end of my report. So
Thank you, and I never
Thank
could find
you.
the video. That's the email that you sent, but
oh, okay, it should be attached to that at the bottom. It was just some drone footage of the match, and to kind of show the scale of how big it was, and had a bunch
Sorry.
of sponsors and
Couldn't get
stuff
that
out
for
there.
you.
We had the whole place packed, so it was pretty cool.
Good job.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
great. Thank you. Agenda item number 10, discussion of possible approval of a memorandum of understanding between Beaver County and Iron County Emergency Assistance for Flood Response. Who's presenting that?
I got some feedback from George. He wasn't super excited about this. Sam could maybe elaborate on that.
Sure. So I've had a couple of conversations with Commissioner Cousins. I don't know if we spoke, Commissioner Robbins, but this is more of a formality. We understand Iron County wants to be helpful to the folks in Beaver, and this is a way to just kind of cover the bases with that. It's very broad. It doesn't have much teeth to it, but I don't think the county's super concerned about that. If you are, we can definitely take a look at that and revise some things. But as it is, it just kind of covers basic, this is what the scope of it is, this is what we're doing, we're going to make it right at the end of this, but it doesn't specify how that is done. So legally,
I knew they were, you know, sweating bullets because of these monsoons coming, and it worked out good. I talked to Bruce, you know, about sending a track on an operator over at least to help them a little bit, because I think they'd do the same for us. And in fact, I know they would. And it worked out. We ended up sending our, engineers department's traco and operator over, and I think he worked a week. Didn't he, Rich, over there? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And I know it was greatly appreciated. Brandon Yardley and, Hollings had expressed, gratitude for that help. And I think it made a difference. And obviously, they still had some real struggles. But anyway, I had asked our attorneys just some questions about liability and those things. And he thought it would, and Sam assured me that it would be fine. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Not particularly concerned because of our relationship with Beaver County, but this is just one more kind of piece of that structure. If there are concerns, they can certainly be fleshed out more fully. But as I said, this is more formal than what we have had, which is good.
Yeah.
So as I read through this, I guess this just speaks about the service that was provided through the road department with equipment and personnel. I guess at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that work, or if there's any overtime, or if there's anything else that creates overtime or additional, drain on our county resources, that's paid for through the road department budget, or wherever that comes from, that doesn't affect any other county budgets.
So I can speak at least for the engineering department. So we created an invoice for Beaver for Matt's time, both equipment, fuel, and track hoe based on what it would cost to rent a track hoe. And so all that was done, Commissioner Blake.
Okay.
And was sent. So I don't know. I believe Bruce was doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was just curious. I just didn't want it to adversely affect
Yeah,
anybody else's budget. But with that being said, it's absolutely necessary that we help those guys out.
And I did offer to go over and operate the machine if they needed help, so I did make that offer.
So the only other concern I would have if maybe a flash flood were to hit while we're there assisting and we had equipment damaged, how would we be?
It calls out, we'd be on our own. So I don't know if Beaver would offer to offset some of that, but essentially would fall back to our own indemnity pool if there were injury or loss of property, things like that. We would submit a claim to USIP under this agreement.
I know they're being ultra protective and conservative when they're, when they're.
I know I made this comment humorously to Matt, our operator. I said, "Don't leave any equipment overnight in the floodway."
Yeah.
And so all our equipment was moved to high ground while it was there.
Okay.
Because I did see pictures of a new Traco full of mud. Not a good sight.
That's an expensive repair. All right. So I guess I'll entertain a motion on number 10.
I'll move to approve the MOU as listed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda item number 11 is discussion of possible approval of local consent for a single event permit for Red Acre Center Utah Wine Festival held on September 5th, 2026, presented by...
I can speak to this one. So this is Red Acre Farms annual wine festival. I think I'm not sure how many years this is, but a number of years in a row. We've always issued a local consent for that single event. It's an ever-growing event. It's been popular. There haven't ever been any issues. I would move that we approve that local consent for the Red Acre Farms.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Jen.
We'll try to make this quick. We'll discuss items 12.1 through 5A before moving on to B and C later for your consideration. In the Sheriff's Office Corrections, Cade Van Orden was selected from the most recent interview and selection process to backfill the vacant full-time corrections deputy effective September 13th, 2026. Alan White and Sean Higgins have completed all requirements to receive a promotion from a Deputy 2 to a Deputy 3 status effective August 2nd, 2026. In the Justice Court, Tanner Rigtrup has passed the required testing to receive bilingual pay effective August 16th, 2026. In the IT department, Tristan Goley was selected from the most recent competitive selection process to backfill the vacant, newly approved actually, full-time system administrator position effective August 31st, 2026. In the road department, John Williams was selected from the most recent internal interview process to transfer from a full-time apprentice appraiser to a full-time road technician effective August 2nd, 2026. In the Sheriff's Office Patrol, Tristan Roman has completed all requirements to receive a promotion from a Deputy 1 to a Deputy 2 effective August 2nd, 2026.
I will move to approve items 1 through 5A as outlined.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. For the evidence technician position, historical reference last year, the part-time position was moved to a full-time status without a real evaluation of the position description. Since then, the position has grown tremendously with added responsibilities as well as some technical programmings that she has taken on full force. The sheriff has requested to upgrade this position to include those added responsibilities in conjunction with a grade adjustment for Lindsay Kim's position to incorporate the added requirements effective August 16th, 2026.
And I've had lengthy conversations with them about the budgetary impact and everything, and it's not an issue. So, and Lindsay has taken on a lot more. So I'll move to approve 5B and C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any county boards?
None for me.
Then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.